or a meeting of this committee's choice. It's bad, Chris.
I mean, I think at this point too, and this could be crazy, you know, we often all at various times throughout this process have gotten direct or indirect feedback at, you know, how it seems a lot of this stuff just gets done behind closed doors. You know, there was a survey done. Was it perfect? By all means, no. I think we're at a point where if there is a change course on that, perhaps then we need to have a community meeting and hear from the community, and also offer a Q&A and, you know, talk about where we're at or where we're not at yet. I mean, I think we're going to start getting to that point, because some of the positive momentum that was rallied around us initially is very quickly starting to erode because of just, you know, lack of information, or, you know, it seems that things change. And there's nothing wrong with name changes. Name changes are happening all over the place, but I'm concerned that we're not covering as much ground as we should be, and I could be wrong. Mr. Witt can correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone else, but I'm sure that's a concern that Mr. Spangler has when we're trying to figure out how can we grow the CTE program. There was a regional CTE study just completed, you know, and trying to take that and figure out, okay, can we use that? How can we grow on that? How can we partner with Dabney? We're losing time to do those things.
Well, I think that therein lies the rub, I think, because from a practical standpoint, I think we can all agree names are irrelevant. So this committee's tasked with doing to facilitate this consolidation. But then also on the other side of that, I mean, everybody wants to graduate from a high school with a good name and a good mascot. I mean, it does bear some importance, but it's not to the level of importance that should distract us from some of the very important things that we have to do. So, as far as Crystal's suggestion for a community forum, I'd be anxious to hear what the rest of the community feels about that. I mean, I certainly have no problem with those sorts of meetings. I don't think it involves the maximum amount of people possible, allows you to get some instantaneous feedback and things. So I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. Thoughts from anyone else?
I think it would be great as well, and I think that that's probably one of the reasons that the athletic subcommittee has decided to waver a little bit, because they've heard feedback from the community. And I would say that, you know, as a committee member, I've heard feedback as well, and you know, I think that's fine. That's fine. I think that's a good idea to get people together, and then you really see what people think.
Sure. Well, that would then maybe segue us. Does anyone else have any other comments or discussion?
I'll make another comment. Crystal, I agree with you about that. I think you're doing fine time-wise on your task right now. You just don't want to lose momentum, and you don't want to, you know, let it fall by the wayside. But and I don't know where the finance committee is on the task of merging the financial systems. That probably should be coming up very soon, if not already. And the governmental agreement certainly is important, but you do have, you know, this year to get that accomplished. So you certainly don't want to lose momentum. I don't think you're in a panic spot right now, but you don't want to get in one. And as far as the name, this committee is going to be tasked with picking a name for the high school and the middle school. After you've done what you think is sufficient due diligence, then you can come up with a name. And again, you're not going to please everybody. There is no right answer, no wrong answer. It's just one of those things. So it depends on how much more input you want to get. If you're doing a community meeting, are you going to do one? Are you going to do two? Where are you going to do them? And that sort of thing. So you need to decide that. And then Jonathan, I think the committee said, okay, let's set a timeline on this, and let's see if we can get us a name by you know, June, whatever, or, you know, and get that done. And then, because there are a lot of implications for that as well, in terms of name changes and other things that the athletic committee has to deal with. So you do want to get that done, but you cannot take your eye off the operational part of the school system, which is what you have to have in place in July of next year. So, yes, Crystal, I think you're right on that as well. So.
I guess kind of going back to that, and thank you, Mr. Witt, and maybe this might be helpful for those of us on this committee. I know it might be for me. Maybe trying to look at what is the checklist of things that we know we need to do, or maybe trying to develop a schedule of quote-unquote things. You know, we just mentioned, you know, public meetings, so then thinking, do we do one in the summer and do one in the fall? Or, you know, when do we need to make sure we've got in place the early retirement incentive program, because then there's a whole educational piece for that, and you have to all the time for that. I mean, I guess because I'm such a planner and structured person, despite contrary belief, I'm just high energy, wanting to know that, you know, we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Because it's like we're entering into a marriage and we need a really good prenup.
Well, and I think we faced a similar sort of timeline and planning issue, you know, a year or so ago, and we asked Troutman and folks there to provide us just sort of a punch list there of tasks that had to be completed, because of course a lot of our tasks at that point were very legal in nature, so we leaned on the law firm to help us with that prioritization. So I think that's essential. Yes, absolutely. It was very helpful, I thought, in the process. So, Mr. Witt, you have thought on that?
Yes, I think the curriculum committee laid out a nice little timeline of when they want to accomplish X, Y, Z. Okay, we need to do the same thing for the governance policy, for the finance merger. We need to put some timelines in. I certainly agree with that, and try to accomplish those and step those, so we keep our eye on it and get it done. And so that's the policy manual. You know, that's another one. If you have somebody that's going to help you with that, that's wonderful. You get that, you set a timeline for that with whoever that person is. And so, yes, Jonathan, we can revisit some of these, you know, on the side, and then see if we can come up with, you know, some timelines or whatever for these tasks that they do.
Well, I think you pointed out something, you know, very good, and we'll give McCall and Ms. Nee Johnson credit for leading us to this, because I've sent the memo that they produced around to everybody, so it should be in your inboxes. But if you take a look at that, it's a pretty concise, you know, not very complicated roadmap for that. So I think maybe those of us who are chairing some of these subcommittees, I think it would be well for us to do much the same for that. At the risk of, I guess I'm giving myself homework in this regard, so it's okay. But you know, maybe us, Mr. Griffith and I can get together. Yes. Matt and Mr. Tucker can get together, and we can just kind of do something very similar. In that way, everybody's got a bit of overarching guidance.
One more thing. The curriculum committee, are you working with Mr. Spangler?
He has been involved. So
okay, because that's another one that has to be dealt with, because that's changing, and so you need to address the impact on the Jackson River Technical Center. Budget-wise, Mr. Spangler, as you said, you're going from regional to local. So those issues have to be, and that's part of the curriculum as well. So I'm assuming you all are working together on that.
Will involve and have involved Mr. Spangler, and actually have a CT tab for Mr. Spangler to start with. So yes, we do have.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I've been on the curriculum committee, and I've been on a couple. I just need everybody, and that's what I've been telling everyone, just a reminder. You're bringing two divisions together, but JRTC is a division within the two divisions. So you're really bringing three different entities together. So everybody needs to realize that and understand, and just keep me involved as much as possible. I don't want to be out every night of the week, but I also want to make sure all the information gets out there, because we have different benefits than both divisions. Our salary scale is slightly different than both divisions. You know, we have been working on for finance, we've been working on the process for years since the school opened up in '74 and a couple years before that of how it's funded and the way that it is funded with the 3-year average and such. So, you know, we have that information too, to help out with. So I'm willing to help out with any and all subcommittees because we have a slight difference with everything that we do from the divisions. So, just keep that in mind and keep everyone involved. But yeah, we have been talking and we will continue to talk as far as that committee for taking care of the courses and such.
Those issues will need to be ironed out before July 1, 2022, when you put your new salary schedules and everything else out. The technical center has going to be part of the process and part of the school system. So those things do have to be addressed, Mr. Spangler, and hopefully in a positive fashion. So, okay.
Any other comments, discussions? Okay. We have one last piece, and I apologize, I should have set it out in the agenda, but we should go ahead and set our next meeting date. And I think we've had some discussion over the last several weeks as to whether or not we would go back to in-person meetings. I'm of the opinion, I enjoy the convenience of Zoom meetings. It helps for days where I'm busy at work and that sort of thing, but I do think we lose a touch of effectiveness as opposed to an in-person meeting. So I think my preference personally would be to return to in-person meetings, but any thoughts or discussion on that before we go to try to set dates and things? Agree, disagree?
This doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Preferably not evenings.
Okay.
Well,
do we think we have the availability to use this hour for in-person meetings? Obviously, for Mr. Witt's sake, depending on, and anybody else's, I think my preference would be to find a location that would be suitable to allow Mr. Witt or anybody else that had conflict to Zoom in if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So do we want to try to shoot for this time slot? A Wednesday, 1 p.m. in-person meeting somewhere with some Zoom capability?
Jonathan, both city council and the county boardroom have the Zoom capacity, so to do that mixed in-person concept.
Well, let's maybe as far as venue goes, I mean, if we have strong preferences for that right now, I'm welcome to it. If not, maybe between Mr. Wright and I and any of the rest of you all, we can set the location in the coming days and weeks. But maybe let's just shoot for a sort of in-person with a Zoom availability for those folks that need the Zoom to attend. How far out would this committee like to go with our next meeting? We had kind of set 2 weeks, but of course we're still in the same position I think we were last month, in that there's still a fair amount of subcommittee work that really needs to be done. So I don't want to burn people out here. I don't want to have unnecessary meetings. So are we wanting to go as far as, say, the end of this month, June 30th? We'll have one in between there. Thoughts?
that may be a good idea, John. Jonathan, to allow at least 2 meetings with the finance subcommittee. But we got a few things that we need to circulate, and I'm sure other committees have the same thing, and we have more substance.
Okay. So
just throwing it out there.
Yeah, the Wednesday, I mean, the end of this month, June 30th, would be a Wednesday. So does that sound right now like it would fit the 1 p.m. meeting? And of course, have a little bit of versatility there if we have a conflict come up in the meantime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jonathan, the committee, do you want to ask and allow Jonathan to pursue this community meeting issue? I mean, because you don't want to wait till June, that somebody needs to lead this if you're going to do it and decide we're going to do it. So, Jonathan, as chairman of the board, you want to allow him to look at it? Do you want to look at it? So, I mean, we don't want to leave this hanging, okay? So, what are you going to do?
Sounds like we had consensus there on, I guess, as far as a community meeting of some sort, specifically about the naming issue. So, do we want to try to set that up? That would likely be obviously an evening type event. Yep. So do we want to try to work towards doing something now between now and our next meeting?
It doesn't matter. I don't know what your timeline is there.
I mean, I think doing something between now and then, because you're going to want something, and we just want to get it squared away, and I think you want to give the community an opportunity just to ask where we are, kind of thing. You know, probably because it's kind of middle ground for everything. I don't know if it's easier to do it, you know, at CHS's auditorium, just because that's kind of middle of the road from most places here, and it has a large capacity, or where, but I mean, we could do it, you know, outdoors at a park. It makes no difference, but
we could perhaps look at the week before, which would be the week of the 21st. Maybe try to schedule some sort of community meeting there.
We allow you to have a email vote and let's have some side conversations about everybody's schedule and try to work it out, then bring it back to the committee and hash it out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We're getting into some people's vacation season, and then too for the public, once you get close to 4th of July, like the week before and the week after 4th of July is also hit or miss with, you know, the general public with when people, you know, peak vacation times.
So, Jonathan, how you frame this is important. For a public meeting, you don't want to advertise that we're looking for names. Well, I think what you want to do is say we want to report to the public what we've done and where we are on our naming, and then you can open the floor up for comments or something like that. So you don't want this to be a wide open meeting, or it'll be a mess. So you want to structure it and say why you're having a meeting, to report to the public why you know, where we are right now and what we decided right now, and we want to share that with you and give you an opportunity to ask any questions or comments. So you want to keep it structured in that manner, and then I think it'd be a great thing.
Okay. Well, I think Mr. Griffith's suggestion is a good one. I'll just circulate an email rather than putting everybody on the spot. As Mr. Wayne said, we're creeping into vacation season and things, so it would be well for us to time this as best we can. So I'll circulate that around, and we'll talk about what everyone's availability is, because this would be a fairly important meeting. I think most of us would want to be at, so we'll make sure we get as much attendance there as we can. So we can go with that. Ms. Preston, I think I heard your voice just a little while ago.
Yes, I just want to say this, Jonathan. Just after listening to everything, I'm just afraid that it may, with doing the community meeting, it may confuse some people, because we did all of this. We did the preparation. We had this process. And we even put in the paper, this is the name of the new school. And I'm just concerned because we had 850 people to weigh in the second time, over 800 people the first time. And I just feel like we're backtracking some. And I understand the importance of the name, and I think we all do. And that's why we set up the process we did the first time. And when you revisit something like this, after posting everything you did in the paper, I think it sends a negative message, like we're not unified, and we are. I'm under the impression, like the mayor said, we did our due diligence. We really, really did. And I know when the athletic committee came together, someone made a suggestion, and that was a suggestion, but the time frame had already passed for what we as the committee had decided on. And I think we just need to target our energies in other things that are very important, like Mr. Witt said, because I'm going to tell you why. I feel like if we do this, Jonathan, we all have a busy schedule, okay? And I think we're going to burden ourselves down with things that we don't really need to burden ourselves down with. We have other committees, like the curriculum committee, like they outlined what they wanted to accomplish. We must stay on task. We must move forward. And I think that everybody knows that we need to do this. So I just want to say, I wanted to take everybody's thoughts and words in before I render what I wanted to say. But I really think if we do this community thing, like Mr. Witt said, that it may take off in a direction that we don't want it to take off in, because people might think we're looking for another name. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, and I think in listening to your comments, I think maybe something we should consider, and we can talk about, this as we go on here in the coming days. It may be better for us to, once we have made, had everybody's voice heard on this, we've made it a definitive decision on the direction we're going here, maybe at that point this body can have that public meeting, again, like Mr. Witt suggested, so that we can allow the public to know what that is. They can give some feedback, but this is really not a decision that, this shouldn't be the iceberg that came out of nowhere for this body. We sort of knew, I think, if you talk to folks around town, around the county, you would have realized that people have some pretty different views on this. And as Mr. Witt reminded us, once again, we are not going to make everyone happy in this regard. It is impossible. Mr. Nitis?
Yeah, I also think, and Tim, I think you said it really, really well. It's important to note, too, that, we had a huge number of write-ins. Even with the write-ins, there were a lot of folks that coalesced around certain names, but even that didn't make it to, the initial, rank your choices from most liked to least liked, and then, you also had the write-in. So, I mean, I'm indifferent to it, but you do get to a point where then the folks that did vote, are you discounting that survey piece? And we did stress all along that there would be a really strong opportunity for the students directly to pick colors and mascots. And that was to create their buy-in. And that can impact our credibility, because that's been our stance all along, and wanting the students to have some part of this big process. I mean, that's just something to be mindful of.
Well, there is that, and I appreciate you reminding us of that, Crystal, because that's there was at least a loose plan here as to the different layers to the naming process, and one of those is going to be some student involvement there. So we can't just let that go by the wayside without discussing it. Perhaps we're at a point too, if we can, Mr. Garden, you can chime in on this if it's a good idea or bad or otherwise. Maybe those of us that would like to drill down a little bit more specifically on why the athletic subcommittee sort of evolved its position over time. Maybe there's an opportunity for some of us to listen in on the next athletic subcommittee meetings. That sound like maybe a direction we want to go, Matt?
I'd like to probably have a few of us on the sport or the athletic subcommittee meeting, because I feel like, now we are kind of in the weeds with the most recent outcome, and all with just reporting out, but that's what subcommittees do. They don't vote, they just recommend. So I think that was an option, but it doesn't have to be the correct option or the option that's taken. I'm wide open, honestly, so I'd love to see some of us with that. And I hate to, that we have gone through a futile exercise in the polls and, what we've done so far, and to back up and lose traction. We had a goal, we had a vision, and that's what we went with. And to backtrack, I think, is going to probably cost some productivity and some time that we don't have to waste. So,
well, if you will, I think maybe, I don't know if you've scheduled the next athletic subcommittee meeting, but when you do that, if you'll just sort of let myself, Mr. Wright, or the entire group know, we'll try to get some more participation in on that. So we, at the very least, so we can, because it sounds like, to the mayor's question, I think, before, I mean, sometimes it's tough with everything that everybody has to do. Sometimes it's even tough to remember the natural evolution of this and where we started and that sort of thing. So I think if we can just make sure we all understand the different perspectives of this, I think we'll go a long way in this.
The reason we have these meetings and discussions is to clarify our thinking, okay? So Crystal's point about the students choosing mascots and colors is pretty important, I believe. If you just pick them and the subcommittee picks them and this is it, well, the students have not had any input on it. I think maybe you should table the community meeting for right now. Let this cook a little bit. Let the athletic committee, if they're going to meet again, see what they have to say. And I would not go to the community meeting until you're ready to have a community meeting. I don't think you're ready for that. And and you may not need one at all. Because you did do the process. There's so much logic in favor of what you've already done. And like I say, sometime down the road, something else could happen. But, this committee has to set the tone for the new school system, and if you feel like you've already done it, then don't keep digging it up, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of, after hearing everything and looking at it, is just another opinion, and maybe postpone a community meeting for a little while.
Well, and I think to your earlier point, I think it doesn't do anybody any good for us to have a community meeting. If we have set, course for this, and just wanting to make sure we do the most public outreach possible to involve the public in that, it doesn't work.
I guess just trying to go back to the athletic subcommittee, where I guess Matt had expressed some desire for support at the next meeting. I mean, Matt, are there folks in particular from this committee that you want at the next meeting? Or, I mean, how do we want to handle this? I think it's important that we have, kind of a game plan. Are we going to proceed with the original strategy of the kids that are in our school systems having the mascot choice, having the color choice? I don't know. Just wanting to make sure that we're doing that. And then the takeaway that I saw from the meeting today was that, getting a letter to Troutman, saying please get us all invoices by June 30th. And then the other piece, trying to at least make like a punch list or checklist of just the big moving pieces, so that when we start really reinvigorating these subcommittees, they've got a high-level punch list to flesh out. I mean, I think that those are the big things. And personally, I think if we do a community meeting, like once we get through some of these things, Mr. Witt should be the facilitator.
I would agree.
He's an impartial person.
You've been rather affirmatively volunteered there, Mr. Witt.
I'll be there.
And Crystal, I would agree that now, I brought it up, now's the time that we need to start doing some hybrid meeting, like with the athletic subcommittee and the facility subcommittee, and some members of this board with the athletic subcommittee would be a great idea, just so that Mr. Witt and myself aren't tasked with going back and forth and losing anything in the translation. I think that, more ideas are welcome. I think, let's see, at least with one meeting, and see how things go.
Well, Joy, I'm on facilities, Matt, so this will be fun. So I guess what your move is, next meeting is facilities and athletics?
And and because, we're going to touch on shared facilities with the city and different things, and where games are played, and the new track in Allegheny, and everything that we've talked about. So it would be very good to have that kind of a hybrid scenario.
Well, again, Matt, just let us know when you have another athletic subcommittee meeting scheduled. Just let the group know, and then we'll go from there. Get enough participation there.
I guess my one ask is, Mr. Lanford is on the facilities committee as well. Obviously, we know he's got, I do believe it's 37 or 36 and a half days left. So that being said, I guess I was wondering then maybe, Griff, would you be interested in helping with facilities too?
Yeah, we'll get it covered, Crystal.
Okay. Well, just between that and the finance piece.
We'll get it covered.
Are you the only one counting John's days?
No, he announced to me this morning that it was 37 days. Quite a point to announce it to me.
Okay. With that, I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion for the second. Well, I appreciate everybody being here today, and we will look forward to seeing everybody again on the 30th, and of course talk to you as much as needed in between. So thanks for being here, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.